not with us on Sunday morning. Matthew chapter 6. We read from verse 27. I'm using the New King James Version. The Bible says, "You have heard it was said to those of old, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than your whole body to be cast into hell." Let me first of all pause there. Last Sunday, I said that the 10 commandments are divided into two. There was a small error in that. It's not exactly halfway. The first commandment to the fourth commandment talks about our relationship with God. But the fifth, all the way to the 10th, talks about our relationship with fellow human beings. The one that we refer to, the fifth commandment on Sunday, on Monday, we went deeper and found what Christ speaks to us concerning murder. Today we are looking at the sixth commandment. And here he says, do not commit adultery. You have heard it was said, do not commit adultery. You know why? Because the first commandment which we spoke about relating to man, it pointed out to the sanctity of life. Sanctity of life. And there is a big debate about that. Some people think life begins at birth. But as we're in the kingdom of God, believe that life begins at conception. Actually, before conception. Because it starts with God. Hallelujah. And that God knew us before we were formed in our mother's womb. That's what the Bible tells us. So it starts even before conception. We believe in the sanctity of life. But because I don't want to go too much into the details of this today, we look at this other category of a command which relates to sanctity of relationships. Sanctity of relationships. Our God would want us to maintain proper and great relationship. And top on the list of relationships, there are different types of relationships we can talk about. Brother to sister, us to our nephews, us brethren in the church, and such other relationship. But top on the list is the relationship of marriage. And Jesus chose to pick on this one for a good reason. That there should be a high moral standard when it comes to marriage. He is saying that you have heard in the past you are commanded not to commit adultery. But he goes deeper to tell us what adultery is. Adultery is not what people consider to be adultery, even in our modern times. I said here last Sunday that when sex is committed between marital partners, it has no name. But when it is committed within any other confines, it has a name. Some we call it adultery. Others we call it fornication. In other quarters we call it incest or sodomy. All other names. You can think of all other names. They have a name. And this is why the Bible says there are some parameters or boundaries within which sexual union can happen. And Jesus says we must regard and secure the sanctity of marriage. And I believe you are here this morning because Jesus wants you to hear this. Hallelujah. He says, whoever looks at a woman lustfully. Jesus knew for men, eyes are important. Hello, men? Yes. Where your eyes look is important to the kingdom of God. Whoever looks, mark this. He doesn't say whoever has a glance. And I've said this before. The word look is in the past participle. I don't know whether, no, not past but present participle. Hii ni Kiingereza kidogo hapa. Kuna walimu wa Kiingereza wanisaidie. Present participle. It means it's something you are doing continually. You are starting now. Mato, you are starting now and you are focusing. Another term that we can use to replace look is gaze. Gaze is to focus. But it starts from the eye. The eye sees. The first seeing is the glance. There's a difference between seeing and looking. A woman can walk past all of us naked. But a few of us who just have a gaze, see her, and then turn elsewhere. But there are others who move with her from that corner to that other corner. That is what the Bible is talking about. And the Bible says, whoever looks at a woman lustfully commits adultery. I know the Pharisees who are studying or sitting in front of Jesus, they are saying, hey, this guy is too serious with us. We all know that committing adultery is sleeping with a man or woman who is not your husband or wife. But this guy is taking us further than this. But Jesus says, yes, if you commit adultery, to you, you think physical union is what adultery is. But to me, is when someone looks at another man or woman lustfully. He goes beyond that. He says, rather than burning passions, a language which is used by Paul, rather than go to hell because of what you have done, it is preferable you cut off some of the organs of your body if that is what will save you. I'll go deeper on this one. You'll allow me, brethren. He says, gouge not any of your eyes, but your right side of your eye. If your eye causes you, he says, if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. If your right hand, there's a reason why the Bible is using this language. If your right hand causes you to sin, gouge it out. In the Old Testament, and in the times of the Jews that Jesus is speaking to at this generation, in those times, the right hand, the right eye, the right side of your body was considered to be the most strong and prominent part of your body. Of course, and I'm not saying this because I'm left-handed, science has proven that left-handed people are sharper, brighter, they are more intelligent, they are great, hallelujah. And one of them is speaking in front of you this morning, hallelujah. It has been proven and it's known. And I don't want to go into that debate right now. I know some of us would want us to have a conversation. I'm left-handed, I'm left everything from birth. And some people wanted to twist that when I was in class 1. I was forced to write with my right hand. And it was a big fight. But eventually, left won, hallelujah. I'm naturally left-handed. So, in the generation of the people he was speaking to, the right hand, the right eye was known to be the most prominent part of you. And he is now saying, if that part which you think is so great, so precious to you, so important to you, if that part causes you to sin, gouge it out. Let me bring this home. If you have a dress that you wear and that dress causes you to sin, burn it. If you have a TV program that you watch and that program leads you to sin, pluck it out. If you have a phone application and as long as that phone application is with you, you will never be free, delete it. Am I coming home? Hallelujah. If you have a relationship or a few friends, or you have this guy or this girl who for all means must cause you to sin, let her go. Let that relationship go. Some people say, no, I know how to behave. I'll take care of this one. It's my size. I know how to handle myself. If that relationship causes you to sin, break it. I burnt my former photographs before I came to faith. Every photo I had, anything that reminded me of my past, I tore it apart. There's actually one which I really loved, and because I loved the way I looked, I was in Form 2 or Form 3, I liked the way I looked. I cut every other part, nikabaki hiyo tu picha yangu. It's there. Nilikata kila kitu nikatupa. I just want to keep that which reminds me of Christ and God. If there is anything in your life that takes you back to the world, disconnect yourself completely from it. Of course, we need to read this language figuratively. There are some people who have said, you know what? The Bible here says, if your eye causes you trouble, and it's this eye that will cause you to go to hell, get that eye out. Gouge that eye out. If you take this language literally, then I'm looking forward to have some people here walking with one leg, looking at me like this, having part of their head cut off, because they say this is the one that causes me trouble. Someone took it literally. Those who study the history of Christianity, there's a man called Origen, depending on how you want to pronounce him. He's one of the foundational preachers, one of the people who, after the apostles died, after the apostles, the ones we did in the Bible, once they died, the new generation that took after them is Kina Origen. And this guy took it literally, and he got castrated. He said, this is causing me to lust after women. I have to be castrated. And some people take that path. Unfortunately, the Bible does not talk literally. It talks of figurative language. If there is anything in your life that is causing you to draw back to a world of sin, get it out. Hallelujah. How many of us this evening will go and do away with a certain TV program? I'm looking forward to hear some of those stories. Some of you, some of the food you eat. Maybe not the food, the joint. Kuna mahali unaendanga ka lunch. Kuna mahali yani, kuna mahali. And anytime you get there, it reminds you of where you came from. Hallelujah. You know, you've heard of stories of men who got born again and they used to drink. And they will tell their wife, literally, when we are walking on a certain street, please be on my right. Because as long as I will see that club, I'll walk in. Just be here. Prevent me physically from getting in there. If there is anything that causes you to sin, the Bible is reminding us this morning that we need to get it out. Some of you, you have to leave your robe somewhere, like Joseph. He had to literally leave his robe with Potiphar's wife and run for his life. Amen. I've advised our lady, I'll surprise you, to resign from her job. I've advised her. We got to that extreme. I told her, as long as you remain here, you'll never have a righteous life. Resign. And she did. And God gave her another job. Let me leave some of us here because they may say, you're going too far. The book of Hebrews 12 verse 4 says, you have not yet resisted to bloodshed, striving against sin. Hebrews 12 verse 4. That in resisting sin, if you have to shed blood to resist sin, go ahead. Sure, my brother? Yes. In resisting sin, when it comes to evil, resist sin even if it comes at whatever price. And Hebrews says, you have not resisted even to the level of shedding blood. I don't think some of you have shed blood. You are too far. It's just a sacrifice of a meal one day, or maybe an appointment with someone. You say, this one, if I go, things will go south. So let me just skip this one. Resist sin, if possible, even to the point of shedding blood. And that way you'll be defending your faith. I move on to verse 31. We're in the book of Matthew. Those who've joined us, Matthew chapter 5. I'm now in verse 31. The Bible says, now we are on the third item that Jesus spoke about. You have heard it was said. Now let's look at the third one. He says, furthermore, it has been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that whoever divorces his wife for any reason, except sexual immorality, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery. Now, this is one of the topics that makes us preachers be stoned. I thank God I'm preaching in Africa. Hallelujah. Glory be to God. And one day when God takes me to even any other continent, I'll preach the same way. Isn't it interesting to hear some of the Western preachers preaching? My ex-wife. My ex-wife number 2 was like this. You wonder, which heaven are we talking about? Which gospel are we preaching? This is a very, very hot topic. Let me first of all put it in context. Matthew, we said, is writing to the Jews. And he knows something about the Jews. If you read this same teaching of Jesus Christ in other parts of the Bible, you will never hear the Bible mention apart from. In fact, all other parts of the Bible, I mean Luke, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, you will never hear them say you can divorce only on this condition. But Matthew mentioned a condition. There's a reason. Why? Matthew or Levi, who was writing the gospel, understood he is addressing the Jews, and the Jews understand something about the Old Testament, and they are sticking to the law, and they know it in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 24 where God spoke about divorce. So Matthew quoted what it was mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy, and I'll come to that in a moment. But this topic is hot. Why? Jesus is speaking to a people, let me start with the Jews, who he knows for the first time, that culturally they hated divorce. Why? They knew from Malachi chapter 2, verse 16, it is written, God hates divorce. Therefore they love that God. But that's not what Jesus is saying. That's not what Jesus is addressing. He's not addressing divorce. He is addressing the reason for divorce. Hallelujah. Amen. Do you mind putting Deuteronomy chapter 24 from verse 1 on the screen? Let's read this together so that we can understand what the Jews understood and what it meant for them that time and what it means for us today. Can we all read together? It's on the screen. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1. If I may read maybe up to a few verses, let me just see how much we can read. Let's read together. Deuteronomy chapter 24, from verse 1. When a man takes a wife and marries her, and it happens that she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found some uncleanliness in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, put it in her hand, and sends her outside of the house. When she has departed from his house and goes and becomes another man's wife, if the latter husband detests her and writes her a certificate of divorce, puts it in her hand, and sends her out of the house, or if the latter husband dies who takes her as a wife, then her former husband who divorced her must not take her back to be his wife after she had been defiled, for that is an abomination before the Lord. And you shall not bring sin on the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. When we read that text, it gives us a ground and understanding of divorce. And when Matthew is writing, he has this in mind, that in the Old Testament, when God gave the commands, the Pentateuch, there was room of some space left out for people to divorce. And it was clear. Here the Bible uses the term, go to verse 1, just go back to verse 1. But verse 1, towards the end, the Bible says, let me just read that she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some uncleanliness in her. That is the part I want you to underline. That someone was allowed to divorce another person, a husband was allowed to divorce a wife. By the way, can we put it in context? Women in the Jewish customary operations, they were not having rights. They were considered to be properties. So if I marry a woman, they were my property. That's why you are hearing in the context of the Bible, there's nowhere the woman is being told that she is the one divorcing the husband. Like we have it in our modern times. The woman can file a divorce case and they separate with the husband. But in their times, it is only the husband who could divorce. It's only the husband who could apply for divorce or give a certificate of divorce to the wife. Why? They were considered to be properties. And Jesus is about to correct that. Therefore he says, if a man finds some uncleanliness in his wife, then he is licensed to divorce her. Church, what is uncleanliness? This is now the problem. And this is what I want us to address. What is uncleanliness? This left the rabbis or the teachers of the law to interpret. And there are 4 of them who are quoted historically of what they interpreted uncleanliness to be. The first one, Labai Shammai, referred uncleanness to be sexual union. If the woman had slept with other men, and that's what we consider to be adultery, then that was considered to be uncleanliness. Because they are interpreting this verse. Then the second one, who is now the most interesting, Labai Hillel, he interpreted uncleanness to be if a woman cooks some food with excessive spices. That's uncleanness. He goes further to say, if he puts more salt, or if she uncovers her head in the public, or speaks to her husband's parents in a proud way or rudely to the mother and the father-in-law, that woman was considered to be unclean. Or if that woman spoke to another man publicly. So far, let me ask you, between the two rabbis, who do you think was the most popular? The second, eh? Yes, that's what history says. And that's what they were practicing. They were saying, Rabbi Hillel, who has interpreted for us Deuteronomy chapter 24 from verse 1, has given us the definition of unclean woman. Now, it goes further. Rabbi Akiba defined uncleanness as if a man found a woman, if a man found a woman more attractive than his wife, it was considered to be uncleanliness on the part of his wife. Hallelujah. When you put these texts in the context where Jesus was speaking, you now see and understand what he meant. Hallelujah. When he says adultery, it's not only when a man looks at a woman lustfully. No, it's not only when a man sleeps with a woman. He says adultery is everything else a man will do other than to his wife. If I'm attracted to another woman other than my wife, and I look at her and I feel like she is more beautiful than my wife, that to me is adultery. Is it coming home? Oh, if I feel like my wife she's putting too much spices. Naturally, I don't like spices. If she puts even a little, I tell her, this is uncleanness for you. And according to Deuteronomy chapter 24 verse 1, I'm supposed to give you a certificate of divorce. Tomorrow morning we meet at the dining table. You sign the papers and off you go. That is what the Jews were doing. And the women had no rights. Imagine, the woman had no right to say no to that divorce. They say God hates divorce, but Deuteronomy 24 verse 1 gives us right to divorce. And therefore the men would go in the streets looking for someone who is more beautiful than their wife. And they come home and they say, I found one. You have to go and give them the certificate of divorce. Jesus hated that one. And according to Malachi 2:16, it is called treachery. It's like torture. You're injecting pain in your spouse. And Jesus hated it. He had to bring a New Testament approach to divorce. Hallelujah. It's only adultery is when you now look at another woman lustfully. You are going past the laws of God. He is bringing the sixth commandment to perspective that we now understand what God meant in that instance. Glory be to God. And you can see in verse 27 and verse 32, the ones I'm mentioning right now, he mentions the commands about adultery. May we as a church escape this dragon in Jesus' name. Oh, men and women, when you stay together after a few months, you start feeling like there is a better one than the first one. Or when kids start coming, Mato. Let me use an example of you. You are a young man, you're not married. You get married. Right now you see her as a beautiful woman. 5 years down the line, you have 2 babies or 4, or maybe depending on how God blesses you. You start looking at her and saying, no, this house is just making milk. No. She is not in the shape I looked for, I wanted. She is not like this. At that moment, remember Malachi chapter 2, verse 16. That God bless you with the wife of your youth, and he wants you to live harmoniously, in peace, together, till death do you part. It's called a covenant in that chapter. It's a covenant. If you break that, you're in danger of hell. It's not your pastor who is saying. I preached a whole sermon to Martin. I hope you are all eavesdropping. Hallelujah. Be careful with marriages. It's an institution that the Bible commands us to guard in Hebrews 13. Then let's move on. Verse 33. I'm taking care of time. Today I really hope I will be able to cover this chapter. Verse 33. Jesus said, and again, now the fourth one. Again you have heard that was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of a great king. And mark, king is in capital there, so it's not King David. Verse 36, nor shall you swear by the head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. Verse 37, but let your yes be yes, and your no be no. For whatever is more than this is from the evil one. Glory be to God. He introduces us to a topic called oathing and vowing. And simply he says, let your yes be yes, and your no be no. When I spoke about the first instruction, I said murder is an attitude of the heart. Love is an attitude of the heart. When it comes to oathing, we are talking about principles. Principles. Be a principled man. When you promise your daughter, I'll give you a gift, keep your word. Don't say, we have to sign a certificate, we have to vow, we have to agree. That tells me there is a breakage of commitment from either side. Let me put it this way. The law of contract, which I have studied, I did a bit of study of law, and the law of contract has several levels of what a contract is. And the reason why people get to paperwork and sign agreement is purely because of mistrust. That I'm selling you this piece of land, you're paying me this kind of money, and because I know I can transfer the title to your name and you fail to pay me, so we sign a paper to say, by the time I'm transferring the title to your name, you are transferring this money to my bank, and should you fail, I can take you to court. That's what a contract is. Or I'm giving you this food stuff to go and sell in Githurai, and in return you give me this kind of money. Lakini juu sijui watu wa kwenu mko aje. I can give you this stock and you go and sell and you don't give me a penny. Let's sign a paper or have a witness or have someone coming confirming that this is what we have agreed. You go to a police station and you write an agreement. All this is purely because of mistrust. Another level of law of contract says there are some contracts which are deemed. For example, if you board a matatu, do you sign a contract with the Makanga that I've boarded this matatu from Githurai to Nairobi and I'll pay you 110 shillings? Do you sign any contract? No. But by the virtue of sitting in that matatu, the law requires you give something called a consideration. You pay in return for the service you have received. Now, Jesus, knowing all this, he knew that people used to swear. My guy. Have you heard them, eh? I swear to God. Oh, in the name of Jesus. For sure, I'll do this. Jesus said, don't dare swear with God or heaven or earth or in the name of Jerusalem, because none of all those things you are swearing in the name of are yours. Haven't you seen people, even in our current modern times, when this recruitment was happening, people who speak lies under an oath? Haven't you seen them? I take this Bible, I swear as long as I'll be holding this office, I'll guard the Constitution of Kenya, and the next thing we hear of is a bribe, is corruption scandals. In the same office, but someone swore lifting a Bible. Jesus says, it's enough to say yes or no. In short, keep promises. Can I tell people who are gathered in this morning service and them that are watching online, keep promises. Don't borrow a loan if you have no intention of paying. If you come that way, pastor, we'll walk out of this service. Pay debts. I'm one person who is really pained when I see people not paying debts, because I have many who owe me money. And many are forgiven. I've let them go. But it's bad manners. It's unscriptural for any individual to make a commitment and fail to honor. Hallelujah. So my wife, as I preach, any commitment I've made, know it's happening. Hallelujah. It might tarry, but it will surely come to pass. Spouses, don't promise someone a holiday in Diani if you're not intending to do so. Don't say, I will love you with the whole of my life if part of your heart is elsewhere. Keep commitments. Keep commitments. I was planning to speak in a young pastors fellowship of some pastors who are planning to do church planting. And I wanted to tell them, any promise you will receive from any of your friends, take it with a pinch of salt. Because those promises I've personally received many from many of my friends. Pastor, don't worry. As you go, I'll be there with you day one. Don't worry. Count me in. PA ni mimi nitanunua. Unakaa hapo ukigojea PA ikuje ukiangalia kwa mlango. And nothing shows up. That's how human beings are. And Jesus is addressing that. He says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Hallelujah. Do you know why we don't practice vowing in church? And I'm talking about Trinity House. I'm not talking about any other churches. Do you know why we don't do vows in this church? It's because of this. If you want to buy us this land, my brother, just go and your family agree and bring that money. Don't come and say, you know, for sure, I swear before God, I will do this. Then as you are going out, you remember house rent. And all you are swearing becomes water and you forget about it. And you never bring that. It will be a sin before God. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 says, you'll be considered a fool. Why become a fool? Ecclesiastes asks, chapter 5. Why do you want us to call you a fool for making vows and promises which you are not willing to honor? God will call you a fool. Kerimo. Sounds very bad in my mother language. Foolish. Why? Someone made a vow. You know, Pastor, we have this project. Yes, this mission that is coming. Yes, count me in. Elfu kumi nitatoa. Then when you go out here, your girl points at a bicycle. And you say, now how can I not buy her a bicycle? You go spend the money in the bicycle. You're not doing anything evil, but you've made a vow. Can you go down to that verse? Better not. Do not let your mouth cause your flesh to sin, nor say before the messenger of God that it was an error. Why should God be angry at your excuse and destroy the work of your hands? Hallelujah. Just go before, even the one before, above this. See? No. Above, verse 4 or 5. Here. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for he has no pleasure in who? Pay what you have vowed. In short, in this church, to avoid you making such mistakes, we don't lead any one of you to making any vow. Make a personal decision. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We practice this in the New Testament. Do what you want. Don't vow. Don't make pledges. If you want to make a pledge, my friend, let that be your personal decision and plan how to fulfill it. We will not lead you to make such a decision. I will not, as a pastor, I will not make a personal decision and determine how you're going to go about it. But if you make one, be willing to fulfill it, lest God calls you a fool. He says he has no pleasure in fool. And the verse that we have read down there, he says he will destroy the work of your hands. You made a vow you never fulfilled, he will destroy the work of your hands. Did you see that? Just go down to one verse, verse 5. When I read this, just go down one verse. Okay, we can, yes. Why should God be angry at your excuse and destroy the work of your hands? Are you seeing that? Unasema nimekaukiwa, but someone made their own mistake. And this is why when I read this, I'm very careful to lead anyone to vowing. I've made mistakes in my vowing in the past. I fulfilled my vows, but I can tell you, I will never lead anyone to making those vows. No. Why should God call you a fool? Why should God destroy the work of your hands? Glory be to God. Hallelujah. In short, the other thing God is saying here, do not invoke him or his creation in your vowing. I swear by Nairobi. I swear by my mother's name. Woo, do you know her? He says, do not invoke his name. Jerusalem is too hot for you. God is such a precious name for you to bring it in a vow. I've been training my children that we should not mention the name of the Lord in vain. In my house, if you have to mention him, mentioning in line with his line of duty. Mentioning him prayer, or mentioning him when you're giving thanks. Mentioning him because we are talking of what he has done. But hii mambo ya kuita Mungu bure bure hivi. Nasema haki ya Mungu nitakuwa wewe. Wewe nani? Oh. Then you'll find that God. You'll know who he is and how great he is. Israel, even in writing the name of God, they never used to write the name in full. The name was so precious for them. I've taught this before. The name Yahweh never used to be written with the full syllables. They would write Y, skip an A, write H, skip the E, on and on. They would not write in full. In Hebrew language, the name Yahweh was so close to number 10. So the way they write number 10 is so close to the way they write the name Yahweh. So what they did was, instead of writing number 10, so that they don't do a mistake and put some syllables that are close to the name of Yahweh, they would take number 10 and say number 10 is equal to 9 plus 1, or 15 minus 5. So that they don't come close to mentioning the name of God in vain. But today, everyone is saying, God, Mungu wangu, you know my God. You use God anyhow. He's a precious name. Glory be to God. It's in Exodus chapter 20. Let me not go beyond that. Verse 38. You have heard, now we are on the 5th. You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth. But I tell you not to resist any evil person. Do not resist any evil person. But whosoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him take your cloak also. And whoever compels you to go a mile, go with him too. Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away. Jesus is quoting Exodus 21, verse 24, and Leviticus 24, verse 20. He is saying that you have heard it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And this seems to be misinterpreted, not only during his days, but even in our times. People take this to mean vengeance. Or God meant to be there to be equity. If someone cuts your leg, let theirs be cut. If someone steals your goat or steals their sheep, to be some level of equity. And that's what they were practicing. But you know what? When God gave the command in the two places I've mentioned, Exodus and Leviticus, he meant it to be an equal, not equal, to be a punishment that befits the sin. Can I repeat that again? That when he gave that command, that if someone gouges someone's eye, let their eye be gouged out, he was aiming at bringing a punishment that is equal to the sin. But you know what? People took that to be an opportunity for vengeance. You do this to me, I do that to you. And some of you have practiced theologies which are from India called karma. Karma is not in the Bible. And people try to sneak it in and say, you know, karma, it's karma. You hit my daughter, someone hits your daughter. Karma. It's not biblical. This is not what Jesus meant. He says in Romans 12 verse 19 that vengeance is mine. When it comes to punishing sin or rewarding someone who has done evil for what they have done to you, that is my role. But in short, in this text he is saying, do not resist an evil man. Let me tell you why this is important and what it means to us. In short, God is saying, we are going to behave different from the world. In the world, when someone does something bad to you, you do something bad to them. I've had husbands who know that their wives are sneaking out. In revenge, they also sneak out. I have parents who say, teacher so-and-so hates my daughter. And then in return, they look for a way of punishing the teacher or the children of the teacher who they feel has a bad attitude or inclination to their daughter or son. This is how the world does. But Jesus says, no, it's different for you. For you, believers now, when someone does something evil, be willing to go an extra step with them. So that your obedience to God, your submission to God will speak to them volume. For example, mtu akikataa kulipa deni yako, sumunulie breakfast. I tried to practice this in a hotel called Mabwak in Nairobi. Some people stole my money, big sums, stole my money. So I went in a hotel, I'm having a meeting, then I see them come and sit in another corner of the hotel. I take my refreshments, enjoy my things, then I tell the waiter, give me their bill also. Then as I'm sneaking out, I leave the receipt on their table. Na wanangonezea kwa masikio. It's taken care of. How are you doing? Enjoy your meeting. And I leave. Someone looks at you, they say, surely? Few days later, that woman finds me somewhere behind Naivas Mountain Mall. She thinks I'm in rage. Where she was cornered. She could not go anywhere. It's in a car wash. And here I appear. I was on my own shugulis. Then I just appear. I see her. She tries to dodge and turn away. But I walk all the way to her. I shake her hands. How is life? How are you doing? Then I walk away. Jesus says that if someone slaps this chick, give them this other one also. This is how you will prove you are different from the world. But if someone comes and steals some money from me, then I organize a scheme of how they are going even to lose their house. Then I'm wicked. I'm not any different from the world. He says, you have heard it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But for you, if someone slaps you, if someone takes your outer tunic, jacket, fleece, anything that you have, akichukua hiyo, mpatie mpaka vest. Alisema the inner one, mpatie vest. Mwambie hata hii itakusaidia. Hallelujah. Oh, hapo hakuna amen. I know. Hallelujah. Have you seen what he has concluded in verse 42? Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away. Of course, that has been exaggerated, that anytime someone comes and say, pay me my house rent, I pay. I need food. I give them. He says, do not withhold. This is where we are talking of when it is in your power to do something good to someone. Do not withhold it from them for the reasons above. Read that in the context. For the reasons above. Because they did this to me or they did that to the other, then I'm not going to relate with them. Do not withhold it from them. How will they know that you are different? I'm falling short of time here to give illustrations for my own life. Give to them. Let them know that you have a different God. Ooh, one of those people, because my wife is a witness. We cleared our sitting room and gave it to him. One day he stood in this corner sharing a testimony. Saying, man of God, I thought by this you are going to get poor. I thought you would become this. I said, sorry, no. We have a God in heaven. I behave like Abraham. Let no man say they have made Abraham rich. Anything that comes to my life comes from God. If someone feels like they want to take my phone away, it's God who supplies. Glory be to God. As long as they have not closed the taps of heaven, God will continue supplying. Hallelujah. Behave differently. You be a different generation. Glory be to God. It hurts to do some of the things that we are talking about here. At times when we are hurt most, we feel like it's the time we ought to revenge most. For interest of time, let me not go beyond that. But I plead with us, where Jesus is saying here, do not let I don't know whether it's my village, that we were nurtured and inculcated hatred when we were being nurtured. Na watoto wa fulani msihusiane na wao. Oh, don't go to so and so's compound. Never do this to that. And we grew up hating everyone, cousins, relatives, everyone. But when you grow up, you discover this is not the mind of God. Hallelujah. Oh, there could be a reason why Uncle so and so disagreed with Auntie so and so, and that's why they never step at each other. I remember we used to, there's some sweet passion fruits. You know those passion fruits? The one that turn yellowish when they ripen, eh? I like that one. I really like it. So there's one of our distant relative whose compound, he was an old muzee, and his children were all in Nairobi. So they would hang everywhere. But we have been given strict instruction. You cannot step in his compound. Wewe, mimi nilikuwa nakuna kwa macho. Nasema, woye toria. We will travel from her. Come and just watch them. Yeah, those sweet. I say, whoa. At times we go around the fence, checking whether there are some which are fallen off the fence. Say, this one. When I grew up, Paul says when I was a child, I behaved like a child. But when I grew up, some boundaries had to be broken. It was uncomfortable even with my relatives, but I tell you, some boundaries had to be broken. Glory be to God. Hallelujah. Some of you are still hanging there. Even Christmas, you cannot say hi to your neighbor. You travel all the way from Nairobi, you actually pass their compound to go to your, and you cannot say hi. You pass their compound like this as you go to your home. Then the gospel is not working on you. Hallelujah. This gospel is not beneficial. Deal with your enemies differently from how the world deals with them. Buy them a cup of tea. Or invite them for supper. Go when they have a fundraiser, contribute. Time fails me to go to all the details. Let me read the last portion, and time is up. So, brethren, if you can lend me some 5 minutes, would that be okay? Lend me 5 minutes and we close this. Verse 43 says, you have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I said to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven, for he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Do not even tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brethren only, what do you do more than others? Do not even the tax collectors do so? Therefore, you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. Hallelujah. Seems like it's really connected with what we just said. Jesus is saying, behave differently from how the tax collectors, the people who are religious, in quotes, who seem to be following strictly to the law, but they are missing it, do much more than them. Initially, last Sunday, we said, in the previous verses, he had said, let your righteousness surpass that of the Pharisees and the scribes. For no one will see heaven unless their righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the scribes. So he here gives details of how we are supposed to do with them. Glory be to God. Haven't you seen that God is interested with how you deal with your enemies? Have you seen in the scriptures that he's really interested in how we deal with your enemies? Now, who are our enemies? You know, when Jesus asked about who is your neighbor, there's a bit of concern here to clarify who is your neighbor. So today, if I ask in this morning service, who is your enemy? The landlord? Or your ex? Who is your enemy? Your boss at work? That guy who borrowed your money and never paid? That relative of yours who speaks ill of you? Who is your enemy? As you answer that question in your mind, God is really concerned how you deal with your enemies. Amen. Hallelujah. Psalm 139 verse 21 says this. Psalm 139 verse 21 says, do I not hate them, O Lord, who hate you? and I do not loathe those who rise up against you. The psalmist is saying he hates those God hates. And those who loathes or detests God, those are the ones he detests. In short, he says, I want to be like you, God. I don't want to hate people for they are my personal enemies. I would want to hate things that you hate and dislike the things that you dislike. But if I hate someone because they are living one floor above me, and when they were hanging their clothes, they tie and dyed my shirt, my Sunday best, then I have a problem. And some of you have those experiences. You nicely hang your clothes outside. Someone's has a brand new jeans, and they have decided to take care of it that morning. So it makes your white shirt a tie and dye shirt. You know what I mean, eh? It comes out with pictures and images and whatever. And this is what you had prepared to have on Christmas Carol Sunday. So you wake up in the morning, you feel like you want to blow someone's door. I'm speaking to some people here. Imitate God. Do not be like the Republicans. Can I summarize that entire chapter or that entire portion? If you can draw a line, this and this, in your page, in 2 minutes, I summarize it for you. The comparison of the scribes and the Pharisees on one side, on the other side is us as Christians. What all these 6 areas Jesus has touched talk about. The Pharisees on one side, on point number 1, I'm only giving you 4. Point number 1, Pharisees emphasize on partial observance of the law, especially the ritual part. They focused on the ritual part of the law. As Christians, I'm pausing because I know some of you are writing. So they are focusing on do not, or do not commit adultery, do not kill, do not do this. So they are okay with that. But God is not settled at that. That's not what he is asking of us Christians. He wants us to look at the entire Bible universally, all of it, and give God the whole of our hearts. So we give God everything, all of our hearts. Not partial, not observance of the one that is comfortable with us. Be focused on what the Bible is telling us to do holistically, not partially. Number 2, the Pharisees and the scribes, they focused on the outside. What you see. Oh, when you see me pious, praying, watching, preaching, doing all these things, they focused on the outside. As Christians, we are called to have our conscience made clear, and inside we have godliness. So it's godliness from inside out, not outside in. Do not clean the cup on the outer part and then yet inside it's dirty. We are called for the cleanliness that comes from inside out. That thing. The Pharisees and the scribes, they seek the praises and the applauses of men. They are seeking for someone to clap for them. To say you are doing great. I saw you in that kesha. You gave that money. You are the one who helped us here. They are looking for the applauses of men. People to praise them. As Christians must seek acceptance from God. What we are doing must be acceptable in the sight of God. Not applauses of men. Not what people are cheering us in doing. But what God says, that is okay. Oh, I like that. Continue doing this. That's what we should be looking for. Lastly, they trusted in their religious beliefs, which resulted to their righteousness. Trusting in their religious belief. So to them, religion is faith. And that's where their righteousness comes from. Or I'm okay, I'm right because I'm fulfilling the 10 commandments. I'm okay because I have gone here and I've given my alms to some people. On this other side, God calls us as Christians to deny ourselves, call ourselves unprofitable servants, and trust on Christ's righteousness. Not our own righteousness. Trust on Christ's righteousness. Say, were it not for God who did it for me at Calvary, like Paul will say in Philippians 2, that I am not looking for any other righteousness. My own doings will not have contributed to any degree for my salvation. But I am who I am because Christ did it for me at Calvary. Not because of the number of Sunday services I've attended. Oh, it's not because of the Friday fellowship I've been here or how much money I've given. No. Our righteousness comes from what Christ did for us. Amen. Glory be to God. And once we do this, we have now the right perspective of the New Testament approach. especially on matters doctrine. Glory be to God. I invite us to rise up. He has done great things. He has done great things. Hallelujah. He has done great things.